This is Kathy from Gadgets Top 321, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at Pent Kotoba No Iro Lemon. This is a very saturated yellow ink. You can see it almost looks black in the sample vial. But I'm going to be testing it in a variety of pens and nib sizes ranging from a Pilot Extra Fine to a 1.5 stub. And today I'm featuring my Kaweco Perkeo with a medium nib. Let's see if we can get a look at that. And the reason I chose the Perkeo to feature today is I'd like to use this ink in this pen, but I want to see how it performs relative to the other pens first. Alright, I'm going to start with the Extra Fine. I don't see myself using a yellow ink in an extra fine nib, but I'm curious to see what it looks like. Now this is not scratchy, but it's not smooth either. There's feedback and there's quite a bit of drag on the paper. It's legible, but it's not enjoyable to read a yellow ink in that fine of a nib. But it's surprisingly legible. Alright, next I've got a Pilot Pereira with a fine nib. It's smoother than the Extra Fine, but not smooth. There's still feedback. Okay. But I wouldn't call it scratchy. Let me scoot my pens over a little bit. Next I've got the Kaweco Perkeo with the medium nib. Oh shoot, sorry about that. Let me zoom back in. Okay, I'm just trying to focus, make sure I stay in focus. Now this is quite a bit smoother. The nib's quite a bit wider because I'm going from a Japanese fine nib to a German medium nib. Alright, I'm seeing some shading here. That's interesting. Alright, next is a Pilot Pereira with a cursive medium nib. Sometimes it's also called a 1.0 stub. I wouldn't call this smooth, but it's not scratchy. It's just there's some feedback. Alright, and we're seeing a little shading on that nib as well. Next I've got a Emerson Singularity with a 0.6 stub nib. Now this is pretty smooth. It's pretty wet. This and the Perkeo were about the same wetness. Let me see, did that? I don't know, it looks almost like it wanted to skip there on that side stroke. All right. Hold on. Okay, and next I've got a Jinhao X750 with a 1.5 stub nib. All right. Looks like we're seeing some nice shading in that nib also. It's nice and wet. So while that dries, I'm going to take a look at some writing samples on other types of paper. In my little ARC notebook, let's see, I did a earlier a first impressions writing sample in my TWSBI Mini, and I really liked it. That's a nice size nib. It's very similar to the Pereira fine nib, maybe a little bit wider. None of these were scratchy. The fine nib is where it started feeling actually smooth. And let's see, not a whole lot of feathering. The edges of the 1.5 writing are just a little bit ragged, but not much bleeding. Let's see if this, now the stub did bleed through this ARC paper, but some of the others look like they almost wanted to start bleeding through. But since it's such a pale ink, not much came all the way through, or it didn't really show up that much. Okay, the drier Pilot Pereira looks a little bit brighter. All right, on the rhodeograph paper, I started, let's see, the TWSBI Mini. Again, I liked the look of it. The 78G and the Pereira, the extra fine and fine, are just, I don't know, they're legible, but it's not pleasant to read back. I liked the Percao. The Pereira, since it was a little bit drier, I'm seeing some nice shading. It wasn't so dry that the shading didn't show up. But, yeah, when it goes down really thick, it looks, it's not really brown. It's just it comes across as almost brown because it's such a dark yellow. You can see in the smears that it's a decently wet ink. Let's see, on my 20-pound copy paper, it does want to kind of feather a little bit. It feels like when you get up to these stub nibs, it feels like you're writing with a magic marker on bad paper, which I guess essentially you are. Let's see what the bleed through looked like. The extra fine had some dots of bleed through, and so did the stubs, but the fine and the medium and the cursive medium, no bleed through, and it's such a pale ink it doesn't show through that much. And in my little Leuchtturm, my writing samples, a little ink log that I've been keeping, it looks, this is a nice looking ink on this cream colored paper, and I noticed on this one, I didn't notice on any of the other samples so far, this has quite a bit of yellow sheen. There's a halo of yellow sheen, but it's just not that visible unless you turn the paper just right, because, you know, it's a yellow ink. And I spelt Kotoba wrong on a lot of these writing samples, it's Koto. But that looks nice. Let's take a look at the Tomoe River paper. My header up here I wrote with 3 different pens, so you can see the amount of ink and the width of your pen, how it affects the look of the ink. Again, I'm not fond of the really fine nibs. The readback, with it being a yellow, is just not that great. But the Perkeo and the Pereira had some nice shading. I liked the look of the Nemesign. That was nice. And then there's quite a bit of sheen on the 2 stub nibs, the Nemesign and the 1.5. But again, that sheen doesn't really jump out unless you know to look for it and kind of turn the paper. But this is a pretty ink. The only issue is, what do you use it for? I know the reason I started testing some of these yellow inks is because I watch Wasky Squirrel's YouTube channel, and he's always showing in his pens in use. He'll have a pen inked up with a yellow ink, and I asked him one time, what do you use your yellow inks for? Because he has several. And he said he just uses them for just normal writing like any other ink. I don't see myself doing that, but I do. These pens that I ink up for these writing samples, I use them in my journal. So I will be journaling with this today, and it is a pretty ink, and it is legible if you get it in a broad enough nib. Well, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.